On a quiet autumn afternoon in late October 2013, in a modest suburban house in the borough of Sutton in southwest London, 6-year-old Ellie Butler's life ended in circumstances that would later be described in court as the result of catastrophic inflicted head injuries. The force used was equivalent to that of a high-speed car crash exceeding 100 kilometers per hour. Ellie was not alone in the house with her father, Benjamin Butler. Her mother, Jenny Gray, was at work in central London when she received a phone call that changed everything. What followed was not an immediate call for help, but 2 hours of deliberate staging before emergency services were contacted. This is the story of how a child who had once been protected by her grandparents was returned to a home where violence had already left its mark, and how the justice system's decisions played a role in the final outcome. Welcome to Blackscreen Briefings. To understand what happened to Ellie, we must first go back several years to the beginning of her short life. Ellie Butler was born on the 30th of December 2006 at St. Helier Hospital in London. She was a healthy baby with her whole future ahead of her. Just 7 weeks later, in February 2007, she was taken to hospital with burns on her forehead and fingers. A short time after that, she was rushed in again, this time pale, floppy, and barely conscious. Medical examinations revealed subdural hematomas, retinal hemorrhages, and seizures. These injuries were consistent with violent shaking and inflicted head trauma. Benjamin Butler was arrested and charged with grievous bodily harm. In March 2009, he was convicted and sentenced to 18 months in prison. Ellie was placed in foster care and then with her maternal grandparents, Neil and Linda Gray. For the next 5 years, she lived in safety. Teachers and neighbors described her as a bubbly, sociable, intelligent little girl who loved riding her scooter to the park and who always had a smile. Neil Gray later recalled those years with deep emotion, saying she was their shining light and gave them a new lease of life. During that same period, Benjamin Butler's conviction was overturned on appeal in June 2010. New medical evidence raised questions about the original diagnosis, and the Court of Appeal found errors in the trial judge's summing up. Butler was released and immediately resumed his relationship with Jenny Gray. They had another child together, who was also placed in foster care due to concerns about the parents' ability to provide a safe environment. The couple then launched a public campaign, hiring the well-known publicist Max Clifford to portray themselves as victims of a miscarriage of justice. They gave interviews to national newspapers and appeared on the television program This Morning, where Jenny described Benjamin as trying to be the perfect dad. In October 2012, after a bitter custody battle that cost the grandparents their life savings of £70,000, Mrs. Justice Mary Hogg ruled that Ellie should be returned to her parents. The judge fully exonerated Benjamin Butler, declared the original conviction a miscarriage of justice, and ordered local authorities to inform all agencies that he had been cleared. Ellie herself had asked to speak to the judge and expressed that she did not want to leave her grandparents. That request was denied. The judge called it a happy ending and a joy to see the family reunited. Ellie was returned to her parents in November 2012. She was 6 years old and had 11 months left to live. In the months that followed, signs of trouble appeared. Ellie began missing school frequently. Teachers noted bruises, dirty and unkempt clothing, mismatched socks and shoes. She looked, according to one report, like an orphan. A note from a foster carer recorded Ellie saying 4 simple words: "My house is a bad house." Her grandfather Neil saw her just 2 days before her death and was shocked by her appearance. She had dirty hair and a bruise on her face. She told him she was frightened of her father. Behind closed doors, Jenny Gray kept a secret diary that investigators later recovered in fragments from the outside bins. In it, she described violence against herself and the children, including an incident 3 weeks before Ellie's death when Benjamin fractured Ellie's shoulder blade. That injury went untreated. Jenny was later convicted of child cruelty for failing to seek medical attention. The diary also contained entries showing she knew Benjamin was harming the children but chose not to report it out of fear of losing him. On the 28th of October 2013, Jenny Gray was at her job in the City of London when her phone rang. It was Benjamin. Witnesses in the office heard her say the words, "What did you do?" before she left immediately. When she arrived home, Ellie had already suffered catastrophic head injuries with blood pooling around her. Instead of calling an ambulance right away, the The couple spent approximately 2 hours staging the scene. They placed contaminated clothing in the washing machine, tore up the diary, and discarded the pieces, inserted a Peppa Pig DVD to support a story that Ellie had been jumping on the bed and fallen, and arranged for the younger sibling to be the one who appeared to discover the body. Only then did they dial 999. The younger child was heard on the call saying Ellie would not wake up. Emergency services arrived to find Ellie unresponsive. The first officers on scene noted the inconsistencies in the parents' account almost immediately. Forensic examination told a different story. The pathologist determined the force required to cause Ellie's injuries was comparable to a high-speed car crash. She had old, untreated fractures, multiple bruises and burns at different stages of healing, and a pattern of injuries that mapped months of abuse. The shoulder blade fracture from 3 weeks earlier was confirmed as non-accidental. No fall from a bed or household accident could account for the damage. Benjamin Butler was arrested and charged with murder and child cruelty. Jenny Gray was charged with child cruelty and perverting the course of justice. The trial began at the Old Bailey in April 2016. The prosecution presented hundreds of abusive text messages Benjamin had sent to Jenny, calling her names and threatening violence. They read aloud diary fragments in which Jenny described her fear and her decision to stay silent. Medical experts explained the injuries in precise detail. The jury heard how the couple had staged the scene and delayed the emergency call. On the 21st of June 2016, Benjamin Butler was convicted of murder. The judge, Mr. Justice Wilkie, sentenced him to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 23 years. Jenny Gray was convicted of child cruelty and perverting the course of justice and received a sentence of 42 months. After the verdict, Benjamin shouted that he would fight forever to prove his innocence. Jenny mumbled the words "big mistake" repeatedly. A serious case review conducted by Sutton Safeguarding Children Board examined the role of the family court and social services. It highlighted missed opportunities, the weight given to the parents' campaign, and the failure to listen to Ellie's own expressed wishes. The grandparents had warned the judge directly that returning Ellie would put blood on her hands. That warning went unheeded. Neil and Linda Gray issued a joint statement after the trial. Ellie was a very beautiful, bubbly, and intelligent little girl who always had a smile on her face. How we all miss her. The devastation is complete and total. As of 2027, the case remains closed. Benjamin Butler continues to serve his life sentence. Jenny Gray completed her term and was released. No new forensic technology, DNA re-examination, or appeals have altered the outcome in the years since. The serious case review led to internal reviews of child protection procedures in Sutton and contributed to wider discussions about balancing parental rights with child safety in family courts. But no single law change is directly attributed to this case alone. What remains is the memory of a little girl who spent her happiest years with grandparents who adored her, who asked to stay with them, and whose voice was never heard in the courtroom that decided her future. Ellie deserved protection. The system that was meant to provide it failed her at every stage after her return home. This case stands as a reminder of the human cost when warning signs are ignored and when the voices of the most vulnerable are not given priority. This briefing is drawn from the official court records of the Old Bailey trial in 2016, the sentencing remarks of Mr. Justice Wilkie, the Metropolitan Police investigation files, the Sutton Safeguarding Children Board serious case review published in June 2016, and contemporaneous reporting by the BBC and The Guardian. I am your narrator. Until the next briefing.